Hello, I am Tony
And I'm Art, and we're here from Garden Masters with
with
a
a Z.
Z.com.
A couple things I want to mention. First, you're probably wondering why we are doing a video of planting annuals dressed in long pants and a sweatshirt. And the answer is the screwy weather. It's turned cold all of a sudden, and we have had to film that in colder weather. You know, you never know what the weather's going to be. Sometimes you might be planting summer annuals in a winter coat. Who knows? The second thing I want to mention is this video is jam-packed with tips and tricks you might never have heard of and you'll probably love all the way to the very end. So be sure you watch it all the way to the end because you're sure to learn some new things that you probably never knew before. These are coleus.
These are waxed begonias.
And today we're going to show you how to plant annuals. These are summer annuals that we're getting ready to plant right now. So stay tuned. Before we get started, this is Miracle Grow garden soil for in-ground use. And this is peat moss. These are our two soil amendments of choice. Art's going to show you what we do with these now, and we do it for every planting, including annuals and new gardens. We do it all the time, every time we're planting.
Pretty flowers.
They are pretty flowers. This is what you'll get if you use this garden soil. So what are you going to do, Art?
Well, I like to use about a half peat moss, half of the Miracle Grow, and you can do more peat moss. There's no rhyme or reason to it. We add it every year just to help break up the soil. And over the years, our beds have become so loose and
Fertile,
loamy, that you can basically dig in there without turning your soil over. So I'm going to go ahead and put in peat moss.
you've amended your beds every year for many, many years. You probably don't need to do this. They're probably okay. However, you should still use Osmocote, which we'll show you a little later in the video.
Miracle Grow does have some fertilizer already mixed in with it, but as we get planting, I'll show you that we always add Osmocote, also a long-time fertilizer for the plants. So I'm just going to mix this up a bit.
The recipe for a great garden amendment: garden soil and peat moss.
Peat moss is always good to use when you're doing any kind of planting. It helps break down the soil. It also helps hold the moisture around the plant roots.
What you doing, Art?
I'm pulling back some of this mulch. We certainly can reuse it after we plant our annuals. So we tend to mulch early in the season to stop the weeds growing. So,
And it really has worked. There's hardly any weeds in this garden at all.
yes. So as the spring flowers are blooming and so forth, I like to set them off with fresh mulch because they just are so much more vibrant when they have the new mulch. But now the mulch is starting to fade a little bit. Usually we'll mulch after we plant our annuals. So why not conserve on a little bit and pull this mulch back, and we'll reuse it. And if we need to top dress a little bit, we can do that as well.
Now, could you just dig holes within the mulch and plant?
You can, Tony.
You just don't want to plant plants in mulch. You got to make sure they get in the ground.
Yeah, and the main thing is, the mulch will act as um, a compost, and it's sort of like peat moss that we're adding and so forth. So over the years, the mulch is getting put back into the soil. So the first year I started this garden, it was like clay soil, and we had to do a lot of preparation in order to get it into a good growing soil. So I just want to say every year adding a little bit of amendments will help the annuals better. They'll get bigger flowers, they'll grow better, but keep in mind that you don't want to do too much because you'll have a huge bed and
There'll be too much soil in it.
there'll be too much compost and not enough soil. I just want to say, folks, as you learn more about gardening, you're going to find secrets as different things that you can add to take up space and add more interest to your annual flower garden. For example, this is nettle, and unfortunately, this whole area used to be all nettle last year, but the winter was a little hard on it, and that's what we have left. But don't be afraid to use some perennials that will pop back up, fill in some of your spaces, and, add interest to your garden. Now, this garden here, the hostas used to be all along the edge of the garden, and we used to just plant begonias. And we had begonias with some ageratum in between, but we decided we wanted more of a focal point here. So, anyways, we had moved the hostas back for that focal point, and it just, and by adding coleus to the begonias, it's going to break up the begonias and just give you a little bit of interest.
So I say we should get started.
Okay, the first thing is we need to put Osmocote. This is a 3-month slow release fertilizer. So
Something else we always do when we're planting flowers or other plants for that matter.
So you want to sprinkle it like salt and pepper. Don't forget, not too much sodium on your meat. So let's go ahead, and that is a good amount. We're putting it down first. Second thing we'll put down is our soil mix that we mixed up earlier. The peat moss and Miracle Grow garden soil. So I'm going to add this around in the garden. Keep in mind, if it's a new garden, you want a lot more of this. But since this has been a garden for many years, we really don't need to add too much. You can kind of see the fertilizer is getting covered. It's a good sign that, you've covered the area. So putting the fertilizer down now, see, you don't see the Osmocote any longer. So that's fine for your garden. And folks, one thing is very important.
What's that? Sounds like it's going to be a secret.
Don't ever call this dirt. In college, when I took soils, the professor said, "You will automatically fail if I ever hear you say dirt." Dirt is what you get underneath your fingernails when you don't wear gloves. So
That's not dirt then. It's soil. It's enriched soil besides that.
That's right. So as you become a professional gardener, don't ever use the word dirt. It's a very dirty word. Okay, so we're going to proceed on with our planting. One thing about selecting plants, flowers are expensive, you all know. So you can buy cell packs of flowers
With one plant in each.
with one plant. There's usually 6 in a cell pack, and they're very tiny plants. Sorry, I don't have an example here to show you, but because I prefer larger plants to start off with. So this plant here, this Koya, is in a 3.5-inch pot. And this pot costs almost as much as this pot.
Actually, Art, that pot of coleus was probably, I think, twice as much as that begonia. That was probably $6.
We bought it at a specialty flower shop because we wanted larger ones. Usually Koyas, when you buy them at Lowe's or whatever, they are in the market packs. So we chose to pick these because they were larger, and they need to be in this larger pot in order to grow. So here's a 3.5-inch pot. Here's a 6-inch pot. Note, $3.98. Now, you look at these two, they almost look the same size. But the secret is to pull the plant out. There is 4 plants in each pot. And you're going to grab the plant. You want to keep enough roots around it, but you're going to grab that section. Now that section still has lots of roots. So now we have 1. Well, this one has 3 plants in it. They usually have 4. But now you have plants. You have 3 plants that are cheaper than that 1 plant. We have found that this is a great savings. Now,
we always do this. These pots, these 6-inch pots, are purchased at Home Depot. Other stores have other ways of selling plants, but this is what Home Depot does, and we find the savings to be substantial.
So always keep in mind, they sell them in flats, they sell them in these little packs that have carriers, and think of how many plants you're getting for the price that equals out.
That's right. See, what we do is we price out each individual plant. So if that 6-inch pot was $3 and there was 3 plants in it, the plants would be $1 a piece. So then we'll go to the market packs and we'll see really $3.98, $4 for 4 plants.
For 4 plants
would be $1
sometimes
each.
You gotta watch. I mean, sometimes there might be, like this one, for example, there's 4 plants in this, but one of these plants is rather small, but you still got 4 plants. If you're choosing to buy these plants in these 6-inch pots, always look at the pot and see if there's 3 or 4 plants at least in them. Because as they're growing them, there might be 1 or 2 that have died off or whatever, so you're not getting your value. So choose wisely, check and see. You can reach in the pots and you can find the stems of each plant. 4 plants, great deal.
Now, I also want to say that it's not customary to plant these 6-inch pots with 4 plants in them in one hole. You want to break them up because that's the way annuals should be planted. 1 plant per hole. Correct, Art?
That is correct.
Now, we've seen other people that might be in neighborhoods where we're working, planting the 6-inch pot
As
plants
one
as
plant.
one plant, but they're not. They're 4 plants, as
So
Art's saying. Now you could do
you could
that.
do that, but it's best to give annuals space to grow. I know people will say, I want my plants touching each other when they start off. But that is not a good thing, because as soon as they start growing, they're very tight, and it's going to
Crowd them out.
crowd the plants out. It's going to stunt their growth. Is
Right.
the word that I was looking for.
Right.
So, as you're planting these, you want to plant them about 6 inches apart, 5 to 6 inches apart. And before you know it, this plant is going to become the size of that plant. You got your fertilizer, you got your good soil, and the only thing you need is water. I do want to mention with Collias that this is growing straight up. In order to stop that, you're going to come in here, and as you see, there's a node. That's where the leaves come out. This area here is called an inner node. So if you pinch this plant right at the node, we're going to pinch that off. And then, if you notice, there's a couple new leaves. By pinching this part off the top, it's going to promote more growth all the way around the plant. It's going to say, I need to make up for this piece. So, by all means, keep your Collias pinched. Otherwise, you're going to have a plant that is going to be like a jack and a beanstalk instead of
Full.
a nice full plant. And mind you, this is how you get your plants out of the pots. You grab at the base of the stem, and then you push on the bottom. They pop right out. Now, when you're planting, if you're using cell pack flowers or whatever, you'll notice the roots are very wound up in that cell pack. So if we had a cell pack in those roots, you have to break those roots apart a little bit. It's not damaging it. This will allow these roots to grow out into the soil instead of wrapping around themselves, and ultimately they might die. When you're planting, always try to make sure this is what I call the top of the root ball. You want to dig your garden. You're going to place that down there and make sure that you're not. I'm gonna do this the wrong way and show you what's wrong. Okay, if I was to place this plant all the way down in there and built this soil up, basically the roots on the top of that root ball can't breathe. This plant's going to end up dying because the stem is going to end up rotting off. So always remember that here's the top of your planting ball, and you're going to plant it to that depth. Keep in mind that you will be adding some mulch. When you're mulching, just keep in mind, don't build up a lot of mulch around the base of the plant. Always keep in mind when you buy plants and stuff, if you had a long period of rain, the plants are together in the pot, and this is what they call like a powdery mildew, and you want to make sure it doesn't have it on any of your plants. Like right here's one. Remove that, because you're removing it so it won't get to the stem, and the stem will eventually rot off. So keep in mind, if you're buying your plants early, don't get to plant them right away. Make sure you're removing a problem. Also note that when selecting plants, these wax begonias, they'll come in a green leaf or they'll come in a red leaf. We have chosen red leaf because we have all these green and white hostas in the background. So the red leaf will stand out much better in front of your already green garden.
One thing I wanted you to notice is how Art's using the trowel. He's actually stabbing the soil with it from behind instead of using it as a shovel.
So a lot of people, they think this is the way to do it. And it's kind of difficult digging in. This is pretty good soil and everything. But, you know, when you're on, like us, if you're on a commercial job, you just want to
Do it quickly.
do it quickly.
This is
dig
a
the
good
hole, stick it in. Dig the hole, stick it in. Dig the hole, stick it in. So it actually goes very fast. Now, mind you, this isn't the soil. This is our mulch that we pulled back earlier. So, there you go.
And here we have the first half of the bed right here. Doesn't this look nifty? It looks rather splendid, if I do say so myself. And I do.
cleaning up the area after the planting. And then the most important part, watering the plants in.
Gotta water them in.
Gotta water them in. Some people will think, oh, we've had 3 days of rain, the soil's moist. But keep in mind, these plants were in their own little containers. We've broken them apart. They're a little bit under stress. You just want them to be encouraged to
break out.
Break out. Now, I just want to make one comment. And because there's some small plants, some large plants, this show right now doesn't look super duper, but within a week or two, everything will really start filling in.
These begonias were planted exactly like the ones we did in the video, except these begonias are the green-leafed varieties. But we did the exact same thing to this garden as we did in the video. So this is how they grow together with the proper watering and soil amendments. You can have this as well.
Tony's making the plants very happy.
Very happy.
And after 3 days of rain, once the sun shines, the plants will grow.
And this is the final annual bed planted. You can subscribe to our gardening tips newsletter by going to gardenmasters.com/subscribe, or watch these other top videos on our channel.